So thank you for being here, Kevin McCormick, Libertarian candidate for governor of Arizona. Well, we'll just start right now. So many people feel it's a wasted vote to vote for a Libertarian candidate because they won't win, certain things like that. So why is it not a wasted vote to vote for a candidate or party unlikely to win?
Well, it's a bigger issue of the whole conversation as it all of what a wasted vote is, because the truth is the majority of the votes go wasted every year, every election cycle, because the majority of registered voters, and this is only talking about the registered voters, don't actually vote in the election. So every one of those votes is thrown away. Then you start talking about the number of people who actually do vote. And then we get into political identity politics, where many people that go to the ballot box often only know about one or two of the candidates they're actually voting on. And then they will actually just vote down the line because for some reason they think they identify as a Republican or a Democrat and don't really know the positions of that person. So I would actually argue that those are wasted votes as well because you don't know who you just voted for. The key is to change the mindset for somebody of understanding and actually knowing what a candidate stands for, and casting your vote for the candidate that actually aligns with your beliefs and your values.
Thank you. So my second question is, how can you provide benefits to the state which our current governor won't provide?
Well, for my campaign, and what I'm focused on is actually representing the people of Arizona. Because today, if you look into the politicians, you'll find that most of them are sponsored by special interest groups and paid for and funded heavily through those groups. And then as they serve out their terms, you can see that those special interest influences come out in their policies. Whereas I am running as a clean elections candidate and won't be taking any money from a special interest group that is out there and available. And it goes back to my point earlier about what is really a wasted vote. You know, everybody thinks there's a difference between the Republicans and Democrats, but in the state of Arizona, during the last legislature cycle in 2017, I think it was 72% of the votes or bills passed only had less than 2 dissenting votes. Over 60% of the bills were passed unanimously. So that should really be a sign, and most people don't realize that when they're voting, these candidates actually stand for the same things and are voting for all the same policies because the special interest groups are actually financing both sides of the aisle. And when it becomes time outside of the election cycle, when they tell you how different they are during the election, when they actually come to serving office, they all do the same things over and over again. Nothing ever changes.
So a lot of people will probably ask you these questions, but what is your stance on ACSTO, tax accreditation, and especially vouchers for private education? Are you very for privatizing education?
I am very for the tax credits, and I think that we should have less government control over our schools. One of my biggest complaints with those programs that are in place is it doesn't give me the same ability to donate to a public school as I do a private school. So when I actually release some of my details on my education plan next year, you'll see that one of the things I'm going to propose is having the tax credits and donations match the option for the public school as it does to a private or religious school.
So I think we sort of got into what it is that differentiates you as a candidate. You're not run by special interests. You're certainly not a wasted vote because you would align with whoever it is that's voting their ideals and such. So on a broader picture, what differentiates the Libertarian Party from others in the way that it just represents the will of the people?
The big difference between the Libertarian Party and the other parties is, one, we actually are the party of smaller government and driving down the size of the government and looking for the government to spend less and tax less. You hear that from other candidates, but once they get into office, the size of the government grows and taxes increase. The other key area is I believe in the rights of the individual, knowing that they know how to live their life and what is best for them in their situation than the government does, or many layers of government. So I believe the individual should have their personal rights. You are in control of your own life and your own body. And as long as you aren't harming other people, you're free to do whatever you want with your life and your body.
Okay. So in your personal run, do you feel that you will be a disadvantage among voters other than traditional opinion and status quo?
Well, we're at the disadvantage of the fact of just the classic media doesn't cover the Libertarian candidate as much. But I think we're going to have some great opportunities to fix that situation as we get going in the campaign and we get out there and are able to share our message broadly to the state. But I actually feel that most of the advantages I have is not being the traditional Republican or Democratic candidate, because we're actually going to be able to, instead of having to play to that base and make sure you're keeping a certain group of Republican or Democratic voters always happy, I can actually put in force policies that I believe that most of people in Arizona believe in and agree with. And so I think it'll actually be an advantage to me, the quote unquote disadvantage of being the third party candidate on the ballot.
Cool. So libertarians are, of course, different in different states, just as a Republican or a Democratic candidate would represent themselves differently in a different state. So is there anything that makes your campaign specifically unique among a libertarian's candidacy?
Yeah, there's a few unique things to my candidacy. The big thing is the Libertarian Party doesn't believe in the public funding of candidates, but I'm actually running as a clean election candidate, which involves me actually taking public funding to run my campaign. Because Arizona has a very unique clean elections program. There's not another program out there in the country. It actually gives enough funding to a candidate, as they describe it, who isn't is not part of the political machine, to be able to run and actually make a difference during the election. So it's a huge advantage for me running as a libertarian in the state of Arizona, trying to get that clean elections money, because it's going to provide me with enough money to run a real campaign for governor of Arizona and make this a real race. And to put it into perspective, with the funding, I would have more money to run my campaign than Gary Johnson did as a 2012 presidential candidate for the Libertarian Party. I would easily be the best funded libertarian campaign in the history for a state office. And that's going to be a big differentiator for everyone that lives in the state of Arizona. This isn't even really about just libertarians. Anyone who is upset with the political system we have in our state, we actually have a great program in place that anybody could run for office, collect a small amount of donations, and receive enough funding to actually run against anyone they disagree with in office today. But not enough people know about it and don't take care of the advantage of the program today.
Thank you very much.